I don't know what he decided, but I think it's about 43,000 now.
Oh, yeah. I think he said right here.
A year.
Watch me do Zoom stuff, you know, this whole one in person. My office is wide open. He did that about going to school and trying. Okay.
It's a minor change.
Right. Oh, are there some changes in here?
It's got a couple of blanks filled in.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Christie, make some more if we need them.
I'm still finding it out there.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Call to order the Van Zandt County Commissioners Workshop on Wednesday, March the 23rd, 2022 at 10:08 a.m. It is just a workshop, but there is a quorum here. So we need to call it to order, and we do have a quorum established. We do on the agenda have public comments. I think there'll be public comments throughout. There'll be questions that come up throughout, so we'll allow that. We won't just have this specific moment for public comments. So Tonda, if you want to go ahead and begin, it is a workshop regarding the game room regulations.
Sure, Judge. So a couple weeks ago, I emailed everybody a proposed ordinance or regulation for the court to consider that would regulate legal game rooms in the county. You probably know that game rooms have been a controversial kind of issue around here.
We'll need a microphone over. Oh, you have one? Okay.
Is it picking up?
It is.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So game rooms have been kind of a controversial issue in the county since I took over as DA and even before that. And I've tried to do what I can to shut down the ones that are illegal and the ones that are a problem. In some ways that's been successful. In some ways it's done nothing but make the crooks smarter. And that's what one of the benefits of having this regulation is that it would help me with the game rooms that are illegal. It would force them to let us in, let us inspect, and give us the option of shutting them down if they're running illegal games. But let's back up a little further. The Texas Constitution says gambling is illegal in the state of Texas. Then, of course, they start carving out exceptions to that. We have an exception for the lottery now. We have various other exceptions. One of the exceptions is what a lot of people call the fuzzy dice exception. Think about Chuck E. Cheese's. Think about Dave & Buster's if you've ever been there. That's gambling. You pay money, you get it on a card, you put that card in a machine, you do something, you either win or lose. You accumulate points and you go and you redeem them for a prize. All of that falls within an exception, what's called the fuzzy dice exception or the fuzzy animal exception. And the fuzzy animal exception is basically found in the penal code, which addresses gambling. And it says that if you award a prize that is valued at $5 or 10 times the amount wagered or less, that that's an exception. So when you go into a place like Dave and Buster's, you go into a place like Chuck E. Cheese, if it costs you 50 cents to play, as long as the prize is less than $5, it's not a problem. It's accepted out of gambling. And that along with some other things allow for legal game rooms. Gambling is defined as making a wager and the outcome of that wager being determined in any part by luck or chance. Okay. So if it is totally skill, if it is, I'm shooting a basketball at a basket, that's skill. If it's, I'm playing a slot machine at Shreveport or Bossier, that's luck. And where it gets gray is the mixture of the two. A lot of them are the mixture of the two. It's electronic, but it is, they try to disguise it as some skill, but still there's luck involved because the machine controls whether you win or lose. You know, you think about if you know what an 8-runner is. It looks just like a slot machine. You hit a button, the pictures fill in the grid, and if one of them is a match in any of the 8 directions, you win. That's gambling because it's totally luck. They have taken that and tried to change the face of the game and make you actually fill in a square to make it skill. Still luck, because it still is determined by the machine whether it's possible to fill that tic-tac-toe board in right or not. So the problem with game rooms, and I don't want to be disingenuous here. Personally, I've been to Las Vegas. I've been to Bossier. Don't do it often. Take a couple $100, can afford, you know, it's like my entertainment if I was going somewhere else. But this is unregulated gambling. If you go to Las Vegas, if you go to Bossier, there are a million laws that force those people to play fair. And if you go read those laws, you'll know exactly what the payouts are. You'll know in Bossier, I don't know if it still is, it used to be that those slot machines have to pay out 97.4% of what's put into them over a long period of time. It's all regulated. They have gaming commissions that tell them and check on them and make sure. This isn't. The people who go in here and get sucked into some of the illegal ones, it's not regulated. They can be out and out stealing their money. But the biggest concern that as the district attorney I have is what goes along with it. All the crime that goes along with it. When there's a game room at Midway next to the Midway Fire Department right now. There was one in there before that. And it's one of the ones that we went into and shut down in July of 19. The dope, the syringes in the parking lot. And at that point in time, through the precinct watch patrol, we had the ability to get focused statistics from the sheriff's office on the crime in different areas, not precinct, even smaller than precincts. Is there a word for that, Keith? For like each precinct, like precinct 3 is then further divided into smaller little sections or segments. And with the previous administration of the sheriff's office, the precinct watch patrol could get those numbers by section like that. And we got them for the area around Midway. And we could tell the increase in burglaries, the increase in thefts from around there, because people go in, lose all their money, come out, want to go back, or they go in, they use all their dope, come out, need to buy more, or they go in and they see, hey, that guy's got dope for sale. They come out, they need to go steal something to trade for the dope. we could see the increase in statistics. We could see the increase in robberies from people who didn't, not that anybody deserves to be robbed, but people who didn't have any connection to it. There was a guy left midway, came here to Canton and robbed some folks going into a restaurant with a gun so that he could get more money to go back there. The crime that surrounds it. I don't want to be disingenuous and have people say, well, you go to Las Vegas, you've been to Vegas. I haven't been in about 10 years, but I have been in my life. And but now you're anti-gambling. That's not the point. The point is the peripheral crime around it that goes with it, and that it's being brought in here. The one that we raided that same day in July of 2019 in Edom went in there. Out of all the people we collected the driver's licenses of everybody that was in there playing. Out of all the people that were in there playing, less than 10% were from Van Zandt County. They were traveling from all over to come here and bring their dope and their crime here to us. So that's why game rooms are a problem. Illegal game rooms are a problem. You guys know that oftentimes citizens expect you to be like a city council and regulate things that go on, solar farms, regulate things in the county that you really don't have the authority to regulate. A commissioner's court is not like a city council. I understand that. There is very little that you can regulate, but the legislature has now given you the authority to regulate game rooms. And that's what I am proposing that we do. One, it gives another tool in being able to shut down the illegal ones. But two, the ones that are legal, it helps make sure that the citizens who go in there are safe. There has to be a fire inspection in the building. We had one game room burn up, burned, slap, flat down to the ground. Fortunately, there wasn't very many people in, and they were able to get out. But some of these hole in the walls that open them up, if it was a peak time and there was a fire, some of those people wouldn't get out. So it gives you the authority to have them inspected for fire purposes, for sanitation purposes, all of that, as well as it gives law enforcement the authority to go in anytime and make sure the games that are operating are legal games. Another thing it does, you may or may not realize that Van Zandt County, many years ago, back in the 80s, had a bingo election. Bingo is legal in Van Zandt County in precincts 3 and 2. They were the only precincts that voted in favor of it. 1 and 4 did not. And you probably remember we used to have a bingo hall here in Canton down 198. And I think there was even one up around Wills Point at some point in time. Bingo is licensed, bingo is gambling, but bingo is another exception to the Texas Constitution. It is licensed and heavily regulated by the Texas Lottery Commission. The only type of bingo that is legal is charitable bingo. There are limitations on what can be, what the owners and operators of the bingo facility get to keep money-wise, set limits, strictly enforced by the Lottery Commission. All the other proceeds go to charities in the county. The charities actually receive a bingo license from the Lottery Commission and are licensed to receive that money from the bingo hall. We're fixing to get a new bingo hall in precinct 3. Some of the folks that are here today are the owners and operators of that. They already have their license from the Lottery Commission, and they're getting ready to open their bingo facility. Some of the other folks that are here today are some of the charities that are anticipating getting some of those proceeds. The Wills Point Education Foundation, the Wills Point Ladies Club, Historical Society.
Wills Point Beautiful, and the newest one is the Marble Springs.
Okay. as well as the Children's Advocacy Center, which is my favorite. Sorry, y'all. But I know firsthand how having those bingo proceeds every month and having that extra money come into the Children's Advocacy Center will benefit the entire community. It will benefit victims of crime, kids who need counseling because their parents have passed away. The Advocacy Center is a huge benefit to the community. I know the work that the Education Foundation in Wills Point does, Keep Wills Point Beautiful. These are all good things that money gets funneled into. One of the ways to increase the profits of a bingo facility is to attach a legal game room to it, so that people come, they play the games, they win the opportunity to play bingo, they win some of the peripheral things, stampers and daubers and things that you need for bingo, and that then encourages the bingo play. They might get to play one game for free, hopefully then they stay and play more games, and that puts more money back into the charity. So knowing that bingo was coming, that it was going to have a game room attached to it, a legal game room attached to it, and knowing that we still have illegal game rooms operating in the county, that I would like to fulfill my oath and duty to stop that crime. That's why I proposed this regulation. I'm sorry, I'm a lawyer, I talk too long. But that's why I proposed this regulation. And I looked at a lot of them that other counties have already adopted. Some big counties, this is modeled a lot on Harris County, but then also some smaller counties, some counties our size. And I looked at all of those and kind of kept what I thought would apply to us, knocked out what I thought wouldn't apply to us, and conglomerated the rest of it. And this is what I came up with. I have, since you got your first copy of it by email, I've done a little research about the hours of operation. And my recommendation now is that we allow legal game rooms to operate from 8 in the morning to 1 a.m. I'm sorry?
Instead of 12.
Right, instead of 12 noon to 1 a.m. Yeah, and that's just because there are some people who do shift work who get off during those hours and they like to go relax a little bit, whatever. And then I added on that first page, paragraph 5, I added that as one of the reasons the court would be adopting these regulations. Would be to help support charitable bingo and help support the contributions that charitable bingo makes to organizations in the county. I have not filled in the game room permit administrator. Many counties, it's kind of split, but many of the counties have their fire marshal do it. I have talked to our fire marshal. He's reviewed this. He is willing to accept that appointment and be the game room administrator if that's what the court desires. Questions?
Whatever. Questions?
Game rooms means for profit business located in buildings, a place that contains 6 or more, so 5 or less, we don't regulate.
Right. If a gas station puts in 1, I know a lot of the gas stations have just one or 2 machines. Yeah, 6 or more.
Why we choose that number?
Because that's actually in the statute as the definition.
The one thing that I'm concerned with, Holly, is it's limited to 1 game room per precinct.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I currently have at least 2. So I just have somebody has to make a choice and tell one of them to close.
Well, one of the ones you have is illegal.
I understand.
So he cannot get a permit.
Well, he
because
could change, I guess.
he could. Actually, he can't because his criminal history won't let him meet this.
Okay,
He's currently on probation. He shut down and moved to Henderson County for a while. They ran him out. Now he's back here again. He's running illegal games. But under the law, in order for me to prosecute that, I have to have somebody go in, play the games, preferably with a camera so that the jury can see it, and come back out. Well, like I said, he just got smarter, because now he has people standing at the door, and if they don't know you, you don't get in. I've got one person who's talking to me and telling me, but it's not somebody who can run the risk of going public that they're talking to me. So yeah, he can't get a permit. And if the court adopts something like this and we go and knock on his door to do the inspection that this would allow us to do, and he doesn't let us in. then
but
it's
he's
in-
on there, yeah,
Yeah,
that's what,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't know who, it doesn't state in here, who is the one who gives the authority for the one, or is it the first one that goes in that makes an application that's approved? I don't know how you're gonna regulate the one, that's,
Well, and there's other ways to do it besides one per precinct. What many of the counties do is say you can't have two within X number of feet of each other or X number of miles of each other or whatever. So if this guy here gets a permit and it's a 5-mile radius, then nobody for 5 miles can get one, and then the next one can. And then you draw a 5-mile radius about that, and then nobody could get one. We can always do it something like that.
yeah,
The point is, in my mind, we don't want a strip of them with 12 of them lined up together, bringing in people from all over. The bigger the crowd, the more the chance of crime coming with
Right.
it.
and I don't care if we have any, but, you know, then is the game room permit administrator, is he the one that's gonna decide who does the one?
Yes, sir. And it's kind of like, you know, if you have it, if you have the permit, then you get to renew that permit, and not till you give it up or get shut down for violating or whatever is another one available in that precinct.
Okay, now, it also talks later again here about permitting within the cities. If the city goes through a permitting system and they give one, then you can't have another one in the.
Correct. So this is a very unusual law in that it gives the county authority over the property within the city as well. So
I mean, they could issue one, then there couldn't be one in the precinct, is that correct?
correct.
Okay,
But I don't know that any of our cities have adopted anything similar to
Yeah.
this.
but that doesn't mean they
But
would.
it's still one per precinct. That's countywide.
Right, so-
Municipalities and all.
Yeah.
Right. So let's
That's what I'm
say,
trying to explain.
but the other thing is, well, let me finish this example. So the bingo folks open one in precinct 3.
Right.
Right, we've got Midway is back open. Let's say they get a permit. So that leaves, I don't know, Grand Saline, right?
Right.
So let's say the city of Grand Saline adopted an ordinance, say nobody had applied there. The city of Grand Saline adopted an ordinance. Somebody applied to Grand Saline, they would also have to apply to us. Because you have authority over inside the city as well, under this law. Now, here's the other thing, or just something to know. Van Zandt County is such a weird county in so many ways.
Free state.
You can say that again.
It's the free state. But even the legislature knows we're weird, okay? Because when there are about 8 different ways that a prosecuting authority can be set up in a county in Texas, okay? Some of them have county attorneys and district attorneys, some of them have district attorneys, some of them have criminal district attorneys. There's a lot of different ways. We have a criminal district attorney, but the enabling statute for Van Zandt County says that I have no civil authority, okay? Go to Tyler. They have a criminal district attorney, but he also has civil authority for the county. This would be enforced by, now, the fines in here, you guys would be giving me the authority to impose the fines that are in here. But as far as any other litigation that arises out of this would be handled by the state attorney general's office, unless you wanted to hire a private lawyer. I assume you don't. It would be handled by the attorney general's office because he has the civil authority. Van Zandt County is one of only a handful of counties in the state where you don't have a civil lawyer. You don't have somebody with civil authority over regulation enforcement. I don't know why. I think you're going to need one. I think that's something that in the pretty near future, we need to get our legislators to address. Because with the growth that's probably coming, there's going to be more of this type of regulation that y'all are allowed to do, that you're going to want to do, and you've got nobody to enforce it because I don't have authority to enforce it. If they add civil authority to our district attorney's office, then y'all get to hire another employee because none of mine have time for it right now. But that's just for example, the game room that's open in Midway, they're claiming that they're not subject to this. I was polite. I sent it out to everybody so that they would know. And they're claiming that they're not subject to this. And I've already visited. Doc Collins was very good to me. Let me meet with Ken Paxton in person about this issue. He has set me up with 2 of the highest people in his whole organization that have talked to me, suggested this route, all of that. They would be the ones that if Midway, if we go tell Midway, I don't even know, they're called Skill Zone. Yeah. If we go tell Skill Zone, hey, you got to get a permit, and they say, no, I don't, I'm not subject to that, then the Attorney General's office, I believe, based on what they've told me, will be the ones that come in and do the litigation to determine whether or not they really are. And they have already read this, and they say, yes, they are. So, obviously, I don't know what the outcome of that litigation would be, but the Deputy Attorney General feels like that he would prevail in that. But just a side note, so y'all would know, I won't be the one, other than the $10,000 fines and penalties. It won't be me that would be enforcing this because I don't have the authority to in my office.
Those fines pretty neat, $10,000 per day, for instance, and you got about a jillion of them. But one that I wondered about was the windows that you have to have, the open windows for not, I don't mean open, but where you can view through them.
Right.
And there has to be like 2 for each front and the sides, and that might entail a lot of construction changes because most of the buildings aren't going to comply with that.
I don't know what the fire code is off the top of my head, but I know in commercial space, you've got to have exitable windows.
Well, this doesn't say exitable, it just says it has to be a certain size and so far off the ground, so far to the top of the window. It's pretty restrictive. I don't think there'd be very many out there that would have that. You'd have to do
And
that. That doesn't mean you couldn't.
Right.
And they always have to be on, no tinting or any of this other stuff.
Yeah, yeah. And you know, this isn't all or nothing. If there's a section that y'all don't like, black it out, mark it out. I'll go take it out and, you know, I know today it's just a workshop, no action on it, but, you know, when it comes time to vote, if there's a section that y'all want changed, that's perfectly fine.
Is the game room administrator going to observe or watch or whatever the 5 and fewer that are in, could be in every service station in town?
No, y'all have no authority to regulate those.
So anybody can put 5 in and go right now, as long as what, they don't pay over $5 total value, but it can't be money, it needs to be a prize or toy
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
10% over
Ten
the way,
times.
yeah, 10 times over the way.
Up to $5,
Yeah,
whichever's
whichever's
less.
So if you have no authority over these things, who's gonna monitor them? The game room administrator?
The fiberless.
No, I'm talking about the actual
Game room.
game room.
Oh, the ones that would be regulated by
Right.
this, the game room administrator and any law enforcement officer. It gives any law enforcement officer the authority to enter and examine the games.
And as I understand it, like that, Bertha, before they need to get a permit, the building has to be exactly like what this thing calls out. They come out and inspect it. If it's not, then they redo it. And they can do it up to 3 times within 90 days. And if they don't do it, then they lose, their application's turned away. But once it's finally approved, then it's in effect. But it's not an easy process. And the game room administrator is gonna have a lot more time involved than
That's
you
what I'm-
think he's
that's what
gonna-
I'm
he's Gonna
thinking.
have a lot of time.
But on a limited number, you know, there would only be maximum, the way it's drafted now, maximum 4. Now, if we change that and allow it and go by a distance regulation, still might be maximum of
But
8 or 10.
right now, there's no game room that's in compliance according to this. So changes are gonna have to be made before the permit can be issued.
Of the ones that are operating in the county with 6 or more games right now, there is one, and that is Skill Zone at Midway, that I believe is in
It
compliance.
would probably come closer than any.
Yeah. That whole front's windows. There has to be some windows all the way.
Yeah, it has to be some on the side that spells out exactly, but if there's no side, obviously, you know, if it's somebody's right next to them, then there can't be any on that side. But then you'd have to have them in the front.
And maybe that's something that needs to be looked at, because I didn't think about that. If they went into a strip center, there wouldn't be anything.
And that could happen.
Yeah, and that could, yeah, I think that's very realistic to happen.
And the signs on the doors that they have to have that will be in compliance, I don't have any problem with that.
So maybe it just needs to be front and rear windows.
So let me ask this, is there anything, you've had this, I think you sent out the first one proposal or first draft, February the 9th. And you've had it, she's filled in the dates. And is there anything that you guys see, the Commissioners Court, that needs to be addressed, that you believe may be a problem? We just identified one, the windows on the side or whatever, but is there anything else that may be a problem?
I think the one is a problem, but I just don't know how you gotta regulate that. That's giving a lot of unfair advantage to different people. Yeah.
Okay,
Can I suggest something? We passed an ordinance out before, it was same problem down there as far as the commission before, they were worried about one game or whatever. So what we're aiming for is a game room attached to, all the other ones in 6 states, that's really not what we're shooting for as far as we go. But what they did is they put a time limit on bingo hall. So what they did is the bingo hall had to be in existence before these number July 1st, 2022. After that point, a bingo hall has to be in regular play session for a week, how many ever sessions that is, put on there for 4 years. So that's what they did. They had to have a license, bingo hall for 4 years to be able to apply for the license. So it didn't necessarily give them the opportunity for only one game per precinct. What it did is it limited it to, hey, you have to follow this before you apply for the game license.
So are you saying every game room had a bingo?
No, there's
No.
only one there. In Victoria County. That's a bingo hall. There's 2 bingo halls, but the other bingo hall probably has 18 months.
But they couldn't open up a game room just on its
They
own.
cannot open it up until that time factor of 4 years happens.
And it has to be tied to the bingo.
That's correct.
Okay.
The other suggestion, I'm just trying to go to, one thing you're talking about mitigating. I'm gonna say administrator, it's administrator. Other counties, such as Bell County, that's it on there, but they charge per game stamp. And that, like the state does, so say it's $100 machine or whatever it is, yearly fee, so you have fees attached to the ability of the game.
The state provides the county can assess a game machine tax. You can charge 25% whatever the state state ticket is. So that's one additional thing that you could pass.
And what's the state tax?
Yes.
So, 60, 800, I can't remember.
So the way it's drafted right now, there's $1,000 application fee. Designed to cover some of the fire marshal or whoever the game administrator is, designed to cover some of his time. In addition, we are allowed to charge a per machine fee. But it comes out to, like Noel said, it's 25% of what the state, they have to get a stamp from the state that says this machine is legal. And then they can get a stamp from us if we choose to adopt that provision. But we can only charge 25% of what the state charges. And I think it's 60, because I think I came up with $15 that we could charge. And I just didn't know if that was worth the trouble or not.
Yeah, we can also do a gaming fee with a long camera, where something to cover the expense of the county.
Who's taking the money? Who's taking the money?
Not the county clerk. Oh, I'm sorry.
I like that.
Now, the $1,000 application fee is non-refundable, even if the application isn't approved, right?
Correct, because
That's what I read.
the administrator still has the time.
Right.
And you've talked to Sean
Yes,
and he's willing to do that?
yes. He kind of thought he was the most, because they have to get a fire inspection too. So he thought he was the most
I
likely
think,
person.
and I agree with you.
Is there a renewable on this?
Yes, it would,
Every year?
every year.
Every year.
The resolution or the application renews every year.
The application you have to renew every year.
Does any of the audience have any questions for Conda or anything? Any comment?
First of all, I commend Donna for the work she's done. She solved the problem and worked with the community. It seems like everybody comes to me and I go to her, and we've been kind of putting our heads together. As far as bingo goes, man, go for it. When I was in Houston, our service club, I ran the bingo party for a while, and it really benefits. Do it right, do it properly, it's going, everybody enjoys it. Before, we did have problems. These places weren't regulated. We saw drug deals, strangers laying around after the night's activities and things going on that just weren't right. When those places went in, you remember the template that they gave us? I took that booklet to Smith County, Jacob Butler, DA over there, to Mark Hall down in Henderson County, DA down there at the time, and said, what would y'all do? And they said, they won't be in our county. And if we don't do something as a county, that's where they're gonna come. I mean, they're not letting them around without being regulated in other counties. And if they see us as the soft target, we're gonna see these things take place. So I'd encourage you to work with Tom and try to get some type of regulatory process in the works, or are you gonna see, the adverse of what we have?
My Noble Sport, my name. What we saw in Victoria, Texas is that we saw probably 25 to 30 gamers move out of Victoria once they passed this radios, because they couldn't comply. They weren't going to comply with this ordinance. Where did they go? They went to the next county. They went to Goliad County. Okay? Goliad County now said, look, we gotta get rid of it. They're asking me to come down and help them pass that regulation in Goliad. So if you can encourage counties around you, because they will just, they're like roaches. They'll move to the next county, and it's a problem. So if you can get neighboring counties that help, it's even better. Come in and pass all these regulations.
Knowles, what's the name of your organization again? Conservatives?
Conservative Texas for charitable good. Like a volunteer, it's a kind of a resource group for the bingo industry throughout Texas. And we've been trying to encourage this type of regulation. The state passed the law, because bingo, it can't compete with these illegal gaming rooms. Unfortunately, it just sucks the money right out of it. Bingo halls into these illegal gaming. And so we've taken on our main purposes, so we can try to educate the campus and commissioners. We've attended the College Station, we set up booths, we tried to educate a lot of commissioners about this.
How'd that work out?
Well,
He's still in the process.
Can I tell you that I refer to it as pretty good.
You and I can relate.
Oh,
Well, speaking of that, and I believe Mr. Melton, Mr. West were there when the legislation passed this, which gave us the authority to regulate it. TAC had a deal, man, and they said, if you have problems with game rooms, you're never gonna get rid of them until you adopt this regulation. And they highly recommended, the speaker up there from TAC highly recommended doing it.
Well, Tom is correct when she says that. It's not the final tool in regulating this stuff, but it provides her and law enforcement
Sure.
an extremely effective way of deterring. It's a deterrent. And that's kind of why, commissioner, that's why maybe you don't limit to one per precinct. Maybe you don't. There's some counties that actually sit down and said there'll be, two, so there, you can approach that anyway, but you don't want to open this thing up. You want the legal game rooms to operate with permits. Now, how many legal game rooms did Van Zandt support? Probably one, maybe two.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not opposed to that. I'm just saying that that's gonna be hard to pick,
It is. It's a hard choice. You're correct.
And
But you
Tom,
gotta
now,
make
like
a
you have
choice.
a bingo parlor and a game room attached to it, is that one or two?
that's one game room.
Yeah.
Okay, as long as they're together.
Right, correct.
What if there's one little building between
Still one game.
them? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
I can just see a lot of,
Still one game.
bingo,
Yes, sir.
by itself doesn't need a permit from us. They get it from the county. They get it from the state, from the lottery commission. But the game room that is designed
Attached to
to
it.
drive people to bingo would, if this is adopted, need a permit from the county.
Okay.
To put it black and white, so the other understands, what the bingo hall itself is, regulated by the state, but the game room, basically, like Tony said, the Chuck E. Cheese or the play game, they receive a prize, and the prize is a gift certificate to be able to play bingo. So that's the prize.
So it feeds a charity.
So they use that,
Yeah.
they use that $5 gift certificate to come over here and play bingo. There's no cash or anything like that ever exchanged in the game. It's only a gift certificate or option.
Well, in any of them, I don't guess, it wouldn't be cash.
The one you're speaking of. But there could be, I mean,
Well,
at any point in time, it don't have to give that ticket for the bingo.
in the statute of 4701, the legislature has to be a non-cash. Right?
Yeah,
It has to be
non-cash,
non-cash, but it wouldn't have to,
Right.
as long as it was non-cash, it is a
in a maximum of $5.
fuzzy animals, what I'm
And
thinking
that's
of.
what I was suggesting.
Yeah.
We do that, we give a gift certificate. to play bingo.
Right.
What does it cost to play bingo?
I mean, everywhere from 50 cents to $5.
Okay, so
And if
you're
you've
you're
ever-
covered with your $5
Right.
that you might win down
And
the
if
road.
you've ever been to, I played bingo in law school because it was a cheap thing to do on a Friday night. One of my friends lived with his aunt who was very elderly and bingo was her thing. If you've ever been there, they don't play one bingo card. You may win one bingo card playing at the game rooms, but when you go into the bingo side, you've got 8 bingo cards. And when they call B11,
You
you're
better
looking
get,
at all.
you better get going.
You better get going. So the idea here is they win a free bingo card, but then they'll go buy 7 more
7
bingo
more,
cards
yeah.
Yeah.
to feed the charity.
Yeah.
For those of you that don't know me, my name is Debbie Dean, and I'm from Wills Point, and I'm the president of the Wills Point ISD Education Foundation Board. And we chose to get on board with this, as with all nonprofits. You know, our job as an education foundation is we raise money, and we're a 501c3 nonprofit. We give all that money back to Wills Point ISD. Mainly through innovative teaching grants, but also through scholarships and dual credit. We help students that can't afford to pay dual credit when they're in high school. So that's our 3 main things of how we give back to Wills Point ISD. So we are always, I think I can speak for any charity that's here, always, any way that we can increase what we do is a benefit to us, because in return, we just give it right back. So this, I think, will help us, number one, do that, and number two, when we formed this organization in 2017, that's how long we've been in existence, it was very important to us to have longevity. Because I want the Education Foundation to be going long after I'm off the board. So we have steps in place to ensure that through investment and things like that. So this will only help us to ensure that we're helping the students and staff of Wills Point ISD longer than even when I'm there. So I just, nobody said anything on the charity side, so I thought.
Well, thank you.
And I should have done better on the introductions. The gentleman in the back here is Chris Fuller. He is one of the owners of Brazos Trailers and is one of the owners of the bingo hall that's gonna open in West Point. Janet in the front here works for Chris. She,
I'm also on it.
She's also the education. But Janet knows all these regulations for bingo, up one side, down the other, and how to do the paperwork and all that.
And I don't have a problem with the one. What would, is that an issue, 1 per precinct?
I just don't know how you decide who it's gonna be. That's the,
First come, first served.
Think it'd be
well, that's fine.
first come, first served, is that what?
First approved.
First approved.
First approved application, yeah.
Can
we
you
have
do it?
none now, so they need to get to approve it.
Can it be done to where it has to tie to a bingo hall with a licensed bingo operator? And it can't operate without that?
We can do that. If we do that, we can do that.
But then it could only be in 2 precincts in the
But then
county.
it can only be in 2 and 3. So we'd have a big old fight. The Attorney General would have a big old fight with Midway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you could always do it, it has to be tied to one if the bingo hall has been voted in that precinct.
We could, yes,
So.
yes. In 2 and 3, you could say that they have to be
2 and
tied
3,
to a
it has to
bingo
be
hall.
in a bingo hall, and if the other 2, it wouldn't have to.
Well,
And only one.
Wouldn't have to, but could.
It
If
couldn't, well,
Commissioners, and I told Tom, I'll get back to it. If some of the existing precincts that currently didn't have a local option election back in the early '80s, they desire to have the bingo in your precinct, then, you know, he usually takes a local option, but also I know for a fact that a city council can vote it in without getting the local option election. So it gets easier. I will let Tanya know if the county commission can do the same thing as the city councils, where if y'all want to vote, they go in precinct 4-1, you know, then that can be done by the court instead of going through the process, expensive process of the local option election. I will let her know.
I was just thinking, if the voters in my precinct voted they didn't want bingo, they probably don't want a gaming machine either. And it all kind of falls under the same rules, so I'm fine with if we just tie it to the bingo hall, and then the people that voted to approve it get it in their areas.
Yeah,
And then the cities, I've got 3 cities in my precinct, if they want to come in and allow it, they can vote to allow it and then have it in there.
so here's my,
Well, hopefully it's a success over Will's Point, these charities, and all the charities that you're gonna have them lined up at your door, and say, we want a big all.
and, you know, there's always the question of, could 1 and 4 revote? Could they have another local option election and opt in to it? And I don't know the answer to that. So here's my thoughts as a lawyer. If somebody challenges this, one of the challenges will be that it's unconstitutional. In order to show that it's constitutional, we have to show, or whoever defends it in court would have to show that the regulation was narrow enough to only address the issues that the court was trying to address, the associated crime, the illegality of gambling itself in the state of Texas, those things, and that it didn't have any adverse effect on anyone else. And I'm trying to think of a good example, but the way the law says is the regulation has to be narrowly tailored to meet the goals of that regulation, and not have an effect outside of that. The reason my proposal was not to limit it to only authorizing game rooms associated with bingo halls is I'm not sure ultimately that passes constitutional muster. Which means it could all be overturned. It would be a really long fight for the Attorney General's office, and I can't commit them to that. I don't know that they would undertake that fight.
Has it been challenged in these other counties, sir?
I'm sorry?
Has it been challenged in these other counties where they've done it?
Not that, no lawsuits that are no have been filed. been challenged to the ordinance.
And how long have those ordinances been in places in them other counties?
Victoria was probably the first one, and they've been in, for about 2 years, a little over 2 years, 2 years, and a couple of months.
And there are bingo halls on it.
No, they have a provision where they have 2 per precinct in there.
But are
Yeah.
any counties bingo halls open? That any
Not-
game room has to be,
No, none that are aware of. There is.
Victoria is available.
so that's why I didn't think that we wanted to be the one to fight that.
We don't want to be there. That needs to be Harris County.
That sound like it-
Or Victoria. they can
Yeah,
do it.
Victoria.
They're big enough.
it
they
sounded
can
like
do
it was some misinformation anyway. Apparently it wasn't limited just to bingo.
Yeah. Is there anything else? Any other comments, questions? I know you put a lot of work into this, Tom. It's been a lot of work. It's not easy. I know when Keith sat down and you start going back and I wasn't here. And you're trying to figure out, okay, what about the bingo? I wasn't here. How did that happen? Okay, it's in 2 and it's in 3. I don't even remember election. I might not have been alive when it was even voted. Don't know. And you start digging and it takes a lot of time. And so thank you for taking the time and stuff. I know this is,
Very welcome.
I
I
sat in a meeting with Tonda and it was game room down there and Midway down in there somewhere. And Tonda, I told him straight up, if you walked in here to get my blessings, it's not gonna happen. She said, I believe we're headed to court and that's where to be settled. And, but I think we do need regulations. I think, and I think this is a good proposal. Does anyone see any problem with it? Other than how you would regulate the one, choose the one?
I'll get with Sean, and get his suggestion on the windows.
Okay, yeah, because that was one thing I read, and I think, maybe I thought,
That's a bridge we're gonna cross.
Yeah, that, and what,
The purpose behind the window, and we probably haven't been real strict on those windows. But the purpose is, a lot of these illegal game rooms operate in the form of knock-top. No windows, you can't see,
Yeah.
you don't know what's there. And so they work and operate as knock-top. So the windows were supposed to be able where law enforcement could look in there, see what they got in there. And then law enforcement can, if they're permitted or not permitted, walk in and say, where's, you're not in compliance. But they want it outside windows, simply just to knock. So, we might reduce some of that restrictions.
I just think that would be a tough deal for a lot of, particularly like if you take one that's in existence now, that didn't comply with that, he couldn't open until he did, or he'd be a, $10,000 a day fine. He can't handle that for poor customers.
Yeah.
okay,
I'll get with Sean and get his recommendations on size for like front and back or 2 sides.
Yeah.
Something like that.
and they can go in and look anytime,
Yes.
right? I mean, that's part of it.
Yeah, that's
you
the
know,
whole idea. So
Is that we can go in
And I think that's good.
yeah, I do.
Do
I think-
y'all want me to add a stamp per game machine? The extra $15? Okay.
Will that apply to the people that are 5 or less?
No.
It'll just be the ones that,
Y'all have no authority to regulate 5 or less.
Okay, that stamp and the $15, is that for road and bridge?
There you
I
go,
just
$1 million
thought-
question. There went them cats. I mean, I think, I don't know, I
Well,
think
got a
we're,
couple of yeses, so
you
I'll
got
put it
2
in.
yeses on
I'll
the
put it in,
stamps?
yeah, y'all can decide.
Well, the
if-
problem, okay, who's gonna oversee that? And
Well, when they come and get their big permit, you know, he has to know how many games are gonna be in there, so he'll count the games and issue them a sticker, and they'll pay for $15 for that sticker.
So when they pay their application fee, they'll pay their sticker fee.
Most counties handle by the county clerk.
that was her question. That was the county clerk's question, is because I'll tell you where Van Zandt County is. Everybody wants grants, everybody wants this and everything. Well, it takes more staff. Is it worth what it's going to cost you to collect this? And at some point in time, you have to go hire more people, pay them benefits, and sometimes that's not feasible. And that was what I was trying to weigh out, is it feasible? I don't know.
It's an annual fee. Once a year.
Once a year, and you're only talking about 4 establishments.
Yeah, and they're paying anyhow.
So if they have 20 games, that's an extra $300, so they'd be paying $1,300 a year instead of $1,000 a year.
So it goes the expense of the fire marshal, have to go by and check on them and watch them, maintain them and keep up paperwork on them.
Yeah. So I
Stay
think,
abreast of the laws of the change.
I think the,
It's pretty easy to submit, just to draw up a spreadsheet.
okay.
Yeah.
And who in the clerk's office would submit the stickers?
In Bell County, what they do,
Yeah.
they have, let's just say, game number A, B, C, 1, 2, serial number. They have a serial number attached. We basically put our own serial number / permit number from Van County on line, a little sticker. In Bell County, that's what they, Bell County, sticker number, blah, 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 so they're gonna go underneath that. Usually on back machines, so they're fill it all.
Well, who generates that sticker?
Bell County does, but I mean, it's pretty simple. They just says Bell County machine permit number 1. Bell
Okay.
County machine permit
Okay.
number 2.
When-
It's pretty
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
simple, but for Van Zandt County, it's not that simple.
Yeah, it'd be, yeah.
Do they
Okay,
have to show proof of their state stamp before they get the county stamp? So we know it's a legal machine.
Bell County, you have to show a vendor's license, which they should do the same, and then you also have to show a vendor license.
and does that come from the AG?
That comes from the comptroller.
Okay.
Vendor license.
No, I mean, on the machine,
The
that
machines, it comes from the comptroller.
controller, okay. Okay,
So for Bell County, when I submit it, it has the state sticker, the serial number, the machine manufacturer. So it has a state sticker number on it.
Okay. yeah, I guess the fee. Anything else?
I do got one other question, because I know somebody in my precinct is gonna ask me. So if they had an election and voted down charitable bingo, how is it for-profit gaming rooms are okay under the law if they had voted down charitable bingo? How,
How's it okay? Because
yes,
There's nothing that gives precincts or counties options on legal game rooms. In other, you can regulate them, but
You can't do away with it.
but you can't do away with it. The citizens, there is no law that has given the citizens the right to vote out legal game rooms.
so we got one that lets them vote out charitable legal bingo, but we don't have one that lets them vote out for-profit gambling.
Right, you've got one that lets you vote out alcohol, you've got one that lets you vote out. Now, I think it's an oversight, because I think when all that was done, nobody anticipated these kind of game rooms. But yes, you're right, there is a local option election for a handful, very few things. Alcohol, bingo, but not for legal game rooms.
And the legal game rooms aren't operating under the bingo law. It's a separate section of law.
Separate.
Yeah, that's what my question is. So the game rooms and the bingos are under different state.
Yes, The bingo is regulated by, is authorized by lottery commission law. Game rooms are authorized only because they are putting themselves in one of these exceptions to the definition of gambling, legal game rooms. So, you know, we have thou shalt not gamble, this is gambling, these exceptions are not gambling. So the legal game rooms have brought themselves under one of those, these exceptions are not gambling. So because the overall law says no gambling, there is no local option for the exceptions to the definition of gambling. Should there be? Maybe.
You have some.
Hey, Commissioner, in your commission, what happens probably, I don't know this for a fact, but probably more likely than not, they had enough petitions signed in precinct 2 and 3 to have a local option election. You probably never had the election, they probably never voted on it. I don't know that, but that's more likely out there. So they didn't vote it out.
They just didn't vote it in.
They did vote it in. Sorry.
Brad, the one I owed you as far as bingo hall being attached, when the game room is attached to bingo hall, the prize is the bingo product. Problem is, when you go to Grand Sling, and I'm assuming Grand Sling, they open the game room, they can open a legal Chuck E. Cheese and give away a basketball, but they can't give away cash. So we're talking about Chuck E. Cheese or a Dave & Buster's, so I don't know if that's something. Can't regulate that. But whenever they open up the pay and they're giving away cash, that breaks the law. That breaks the law and makes it illegal at that point. If they open up the game room with 800 in it and they give away basketballs, they do pretty hard to prosecute that. But
Well, these
you make this
people,
ain't a business, you know, right?
what are these people giving away?
Sorry.
What are these people giving away that we're permitting?
Well, bingo, give them a chance to win bingo prize.
For y'all.
Cash for bingo. So those, that's what they do. They play this game and win a gift certificate, they take this over here. And they.
Well, and
What
y'all's
does
place
the one in
will.
Midway give? them?
Yeah.
Well,
what's
they
one-
give away
One in-
toys like,
No, the Midway's giving away cash, but they are trying to put themselves under another exception. By saying that there is no luck, that it is pure skill. And that is what the Attorney General is gonna have to litigate. This will give us the authority to regulate them. And then that is what the Attorney General is gonna have to litigate as to whether or not the games that they have are only skill or whether there is some luck to it.
what's your?
So I don't see them pushing it that far. You think they would?
I
think
would
when
if
you-
I were them, I'd pay my $1,000 and be done.
Yeah.
You know, and I'll say this about it. Since we shut them down in July of 19, after they open back up, they have a, would you agree, Bob, better environment?
A better.
Yes.
They don't have very many players.
And it's not near as crowded.
No, not gonna be.
Yeah.
No.
They're gonna be close.
Yeah, that's what he'll be there between 8 and
Yeah.
1.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they,
But it was my understanding, they were shut down, they reopened because our district judge ruled that it was a game of skill.
Yeah.
So that allowed it to reopen.
And yes, but that rule, he did rule that, but that ruling, the Attorney General is not afraid of that ruling at all because nobody was a party to it except themselves. So nobody was arguing the other
Nobody
side.
decided this, what I thought.
So that part doesn't intimidate me, doesn't intimidate the Attorney General at all. But yeah, to me, they should just pay the $1,000. But if they wanna fight it, then the AG's guy has told me that they'll take that fight.
Who's their attorney? Is it some local attorney?
His name's Dallas Stark, he's in, Tyler.
Okay. Any other questions about the game rooms? And would you like to have that on the agenda for this next?
I'm gonna be pretty busy. Can we
Okay.
skip one,
Okay,
and then I'll get these.
okay.
changes
Will you
made.
just let us know when
I'll
you,
let you know.
let us know when you want it on the agenda?
Let you know.
Okay. All minds clear? And thank y'all for being here. Thank y'all for attending. It makes it a lot. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.